Maka, for that introduction, and we get right into business. First, the synopsis of this panel conversation. As Africans, we're a people of rich cultural heritage. We have indigenous rituals and traditions that have been passed down through generations that has shaped our family dynamics and community integration. Personally, I grew up listening to my mom tell us folk tales. We had different rites of passage as a people. For example, the Igbos, you will get a chicken killed for you when you have your first menses as a daughter, just to usher you into puberty. We have stuff like naming ceremonies, funerals, marriages, healing rituals, and harvest festivals. My father's birthday is August 23rd. And growing up, we ate new yam on his birthday in a very ceremonious way. That was our family's New Yam festival to thank the God of the harvest. And through these traditions, my siblings and I learned the beliefs, values, and experiences of our ancestors. And it has helped to cement our identity as Igbos and Africans. But as globalization expands, especially as we are just a tweet or a chat away from someone of another culture, it's looking like our young people are getting disconnected from our rich heritage. Our world is currently characterized by a vast cultural diversity coupled with a high rate of migration outside of our continent. Yet, we must uphold our Africanness by understanding and appreciating the rituals of traditions embedded in our African family life. So, in this panel, our discussion with these carefully selected and esteemed experts, Gbenga is smiling, will take us on a journey on how these rituals and traditions foster resilience, strengthen familiar bonds, and promote cultural identity and pride within African communities. We also hope that in this panel, we'll prefer applicable solutions as we explore the potentials of these rituals and traditions such that we can harness them for global impact, transcending geographical boundaries, and enriching the cultural landscape of humanity as a whole. So I invite you to relax and enjoy this enriching and thought-provoking discussion as we celebrate the diversity and resilience of African family life whilst exploring the transformative potentials of its rituals and traditions for global impact. So, round one. And I'm starting with a beautiful woman in the middle. Thankfully, Professor Ngozi, started us on this conversation, and she talked about greeting and respect for elders. In our culture, elders are revered for their wisdom, their experiences, and their contributions to the community. Young people are expected to honor and respect our elders. So my question is, what is your experience in the workforce, working with millennials and Gen Zs? Is that African tradition of respect for elders still intact, or is it eroding? I'll follow up with the next question so you answer both of them. If you feel that it's eroding, how can we address this trend and promote a greater appreciation for the wisdom, experiences, and contributions of elders within our community, particularly among Gen Z?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Brother Praise. That's what I call him. Maybe he's your VC or your chancellor or your president, but he is Brother Praise to me. And, uh, and all my beautiful sisters, I, I told one of them just now that, or before I came on stage, that I thought I was just coming to speak, but I didn't know that it was also an opportunity to see a lot of my sisters that I've not seen for a long time. So thank you for having me. And it's been refreshing, the little part that I was able to meet before this session. To answer your question, I was, if I had seen the question before now, I would have done Ojoro and asked you to direct it to Gbenga. Since he's the human resource professional, but I think I can deal with it. Okay, talking about elders and the respect. I think it is already clear now with the way the world is going that respect is reciprocal. I mean, when we were younger, and I mean when we were younger, because I'm sure among the old people in this room right now, when we were younger, they always tell you that whatever the elder says is true. And it's either a yes or a yes. There is no yes or no or maybe. You understand? So we always did what we were told. But that is no longer the case because education, westernization, urbanization, interacting with other cultures has certainly sort of eroded that. So, but I think it is not, I won't say eroded it in a negative sense. I would say it has improved on it in the sense that in the workplace, you now know that the fact that you're older doesn't necessarily mean that you're wiser or you know better or you have all the answers. Because the younger generation are not shy to challenge the status quo. They are not shy. They are not afraid to tell you to your face that you are wrong. They are not the ones who can tell you that you are wrong will politely tell you that there is a better way of doing it. So if you have enough sense, you will realize that the way you want to do it is not right. So I won't say it has eroded it, unless the kind of management style you have in the workplace is the autocratic management style, or you are the boss, everybody is under me kind of style, then that it will not. What it will just do is shut up people and stunt people's capacity to create ideas or to bring up ideas. But I think it has already improved, actually improved it in the sense that we now recognize that younger people can actually bring solutions to the table, and that when we come into a room together and we are all talking together and we are giving the younger people the opportunity to not be afraid to say their mind, to speak up, and to contribute to the organization, then it works. But yes, in a way, how will I put it now? I think that we still have it in I think most young people still understand that as Africans, we should respect people that are older than us. I mean, when I step into my office most of the time, if I meet young people in the corridors or at the entrance, they want to carry my bag. But unfortunately, I don't let people carry my bag because I tell them if the bag is too heavy for me to carry, then I don't need it. So, and it's part of my dress. So why would I let somebody else carry it? So I think those gestures are still there to show that the respect for the elders is still very present with us. We've not lost it, but they are not afraid to speak up, and they are not afraid to challenge the status quo. I think that's where I'll rest it for now.
A round of applause for her, please. So, Gbenga, she was actually sending the question to you as if she knew I wanted to hear your perspective, being someone in the HR unit. So, how do you suggest that we manage the African culture of respect and honor without leaders abusing it or trampling on the rights of their workers in the workplace?
The good thing is that if you try to trample on their rights, they will tell you to your face. That phrase that was made popular in Lagos a few years ago, Sorosoke. Honestly, I warned a few people in the corporate world at the time that that phrase has become, in my opinion, a culture statement or a management term to say, please explain yourself. Please let me understand what you're saying. Uh, yes, I recognize your authority. I recognize what you're doing. But whatever it is you're doing involves me as well. And so carry me into that thinking. If you come from that, I, I, I mean, as you asked the question, my immediate reaction was, can we please just remove the word elder and put leader? Because all of a sudden, if you put the word leader, then you know you can't coerce people for respect. You have to earn the respect. And even if you look at the question in another dimension, it's almost as if there is a preconceived bias against young people. And that's what we all need to deal with first. First off, you were young too at some point. The millennials that are talking today against Gen Zs were once, the center of attraction themselves. Um, so what we should have at the back of our mind that should really guide us as leaders and not elders is the issue of results, is the issue of impact and relevance in and out of the workplace. And if you do it that way, there is a wisdom, there is a level of creativity and innovation that we can then have access to. As we're asking the question, I just started to do something that the average young people does now in the workplace and at home. So let me just read because it's not me. So I decided to just ask Google a question. How much fund has Inye Aboyeji raised? I didn't state the year. I know how long he's been in the tech space. I just said, and this is the very latest fund he has raised. So let me read the answer to you. Inyola Aboyeji, Nigeria launches a $672 million tech fund for young people. Don't bring out your phones. Don't calculate it. 672 million US dollars. So, excuse me, you can't stand before that person and coerce respect if you have not raised 672,000 naira. If you are not doing anything to impact anybody, don't shut him down because he's just going to look at you and smile and just walk away because in his mind, it's like, where do I start from? Right? So at home and in the workplace, let's take that away. And that's what I wanted to and thank you for what, let's take that away. Or else the survival of your organization, of your business, of your life is at stake because what you can't see, these guys see it. And if you allow them share their thoughts, you'll be saving your business, you'll be saving your entire life, right? So that's one. The other bit is, I've been in this space for a while and I'm glad to see the progress we've made in recent times. More organizations are being forced into it. As of July last year, the median age of Nigeria as a country became 18.1. Whatever data you're looking at, whatever the source point, 70 to 75% of our current population, let's say 220 million or 200 million, 70% of the population are under the age of 30 or 35. So we are a very, very young country, extremely young country. And if I look at the 8 billion of the world population as well, Africa continent is very young, and then the entire world itself is very young. My point is, more and more organizations are being forced. In fact, this year alone, I've run training sessions and retreat sessions to help executives and leaders to really, truly just, can we take down this bias? Can we just tear it down and see that person first as a human being with wisdom, with something to contribute, with some value that has earned the right to be in the workplace. I was still at Landmark University over the weekend, and I met a 19-year-old studying telecommunications engineering, and she's in 200 level. For some of us here, you were probably still in secondary school at that point. So the entire system around us is young and is having to cater for young people. And my message is simple: tear down the bias, open up to this, or else we'll miss out on value.
Please, a round of applause for that. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Gbenga, for that. And when I was asking Gbenga before we came on, and I said, "Are you ready for the Gen Z question?" He said, "I don't like this Gen Z thing," and I totally agree with him. Why? Because these generations are just classifications for us to know when a person was born, not necessarily to label a person, right? So, which is why we need to bridge the gap, understanding fundamentally that we're all human beings. I think it was Sadhguru that said something when he was speaking to parents. He said, the difference between you and your child is that you arrived here earlier. We are all learning, we are all a work in progress. So if we understand that, we can now harness everything. So to just wrap up what both of you said, it's about understanding that the Gen Zs, they just need transparency and honesty, and they're outspoken. And so you should see someone asking you for feed forward or questioning you as a means of connection, not because it's challenging your authority. Because if I ask a question and you answer, you help me clarify. And so if we understand it that way, we won't. Again, it's for the Gen Zs to also know, as much as all of us are a work in progress, the fact that I arrived here before you, at least there's some lived experience that I have gained that you should also honor. So Madam said it, respect is reciprocal. If we all respect ourselves, we can tap into the rich wisdom that all generations bring. Thank you. And Gbenga, I like that. Replace elder with leader. So when you go home and you're saying, you don't know I'm your elder, ask yourself, am I leading? If you are not leading, just carry that your elder and put it in your pocket. Okay, so I like going to Ayo now. Yes, Nigeria is a young country in terms of about 70% of our population are young people. And then we're talking about rituals and African traditions. And I think there is one that is slipping out of our hands that we can even use to transfer our rich heritage to these young people. And I'm talking about storytelling. Storytelling is one of the rich African traditions where elders, leaders, pass down wisdom, values, and cultural heritage through oral narratives. This was one way family history and morals were transferred, strengthening intergenerational bonds and fostering a sense of community and, importantly, identity across generations. Because now a large number of us are losing our identity. How can we bring back this tradition and leverage it to rebuild, bridge intergenerational gaps, especially in these times? Now, we now understand that these generations are for classifications. But I'm saying, especially at these times where there seems to be a wide gap between Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun.
If you don't know this, just be going home or call me elder when you see me.
Dun, 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 dun. You know, some people are already following that song. What do you remember? Tales by Moonlight. None of the people here sat down to listen to Tales by Moonlight in the village. Yes or yes? But you sat by it in front of your TV. Oh, well, Madam says she did. I didn't. I was born, bred, buttered, amalad, lafund, ogbonod in Lagos. Let me first of all speak to one of the issues that has been raised earlier. When you talk about elders being leaders, the first question you want to ask is, how many parents see themselves as leaders? We don't. Some do. Most don't. What's the difference? Listening. My friend, sit down there. In your own day, once you hear Papa to your tent, O Israel. But today, your child hears Papa, come and stand in front of the door. My friend, go back there. You hear why? You tell Baba your why. You only hear why. Most parents This is a question I asked. I was anchoring a panel last year, the Excellency Leadership Conference of Daystar. And one of the first questions I asked Pastor Nike at DME, how do you parent? How do parents who need parenting parent others? So let us establish that first of all. Parents who need parenting are parenting. That is why they need an organization like IFED. That is free advert. So you people will pay for that advert first of all. But seriously speaking, people don't understand family engineering. I was glad to have Mr. Showmi on air last week and was talking about a number of things. So the Bible says, forgive me, I may quote the Bible from time to time, train up your child in what? Not the way you want the child to go. The way the child should. Many leave out that. Leading me to the answer to the question you asked about storytelling. There is something that the parents had then. They had what we now call in corporate organizations institutional knowledge. Most of the stories that you read in the Bible and the Quran, they were not written initially. They were passed down how? Mouth to mouth. God then blessed them with enough memory, not the 512 kilobytes as some people have now. The elders of those days had their memories in gigabytes. Today, some of the things we are talking about here, by the time you step out there, most of us have forgotten. Why? Our attention span is short now. As of 2015, attention span was about 8 seconds. Shorter than that of a fish. So how do that of the goldfish. So how do you let people remember the things you tell them? Only by stories. Stories that they can relate with and remember. The parents of those days had the opportunity for us to sit under trees and tell us stories of what happened to their great-great-grandfathers, then the great-grandfathers, and then the fathers, and all of that. Today, one of the opportunities we have is technology. Parents back then had education. What does this young generation have? Technology. Are we going there? No. We want to collect the technology from them. I assure you, you can't. It has come to stay. The best wisdom we can borrow ourselves is to go there to meet them. You are no longer able to summon a child to just come. You go to the child. Someone said, things are different now. Things are the same. They just have different variants of the same. Not be cap, PF they wear so. How many of us are wearing caps today? I don't remember the last time I wore one. But the traditions aren't going anywhere. We just have to recognize how they are evolving and latch on. Technology is one way to reach the average young person today. Most parents, most corporate organizations, most cultures with the elders are still largely the same. I assure you, we are losing them if we don't go to their playfield and meet them. That is why most corporate organizations today, they do the things that young people want so that they can attract them. So imagine a Union Bank, for instance, doing adverts for young people. Imagine First Bank using local balance. First Bank. 18, what did they start working? And they are still using, it's because they recognize that there is a need to bridge the gap. It's no longer an old people's bank. And I want to latch on a little to something that you said about the young person who is able to raise $600 and something million. The difference would be in the cultural values that young man has. Someone who cannot parent himself, who doesn't have what I can call intrapersonal communication. You can't talk to yourself. You want to talk to somebody else, you will mess it up. So storytelling is a powerful tool to use to communicate anything, but do you yourself, do you even know how to talk to yourself? Let me give you one last example and I'll hand over. This is how simple communication is. If I say, don't think, is there any picture in your head? None. Don't think about any picture in your head. Don't think about a dog. What's the first thing that comes to your head? You are all disobedient. So, if you want children to get it, paint pictures in their heads. If you want them to hold on to a thing, paint pictures in their heads. And there is an eternal strategy. Repetition does what? Brings retention. The more you say the same thing, the more they are likely to remember it from time to time. But you yourself have to be persuaded that the information you are giving your children, you are not telling them what you want to do and you are doing the other thing. Not like saying, go and tell that man that I'm not at home. And the child says, my daddy said I should tell you.
Thank you so much for that. So yes, Ayo has brought to our notice to recognize that growth is continuous. If you will lose relevance if you stay stuck in the past. So always ask yourself, what do we need to do differently? And then when it comes to storytelling, I think each of us should go back home and find ways to preserve our cultural narratives. If you are not taking anything from this conversation about storytelling and oral tradition, you want to go and document, interview your grandparents down your genealogy, as many of them are still alive. I remember sometime in 2019 or 2021, I can't remember if it was post-COVID or before, my husband and I said, you know what? Invite the grandparents. We had a weekend retreat with them. And then the children, asking questions. How did you meet grandma? What is the legend story of our generation? And all of that. And it was interesting listening to him talk about the young man who is building an AI tool to preserve the stories from. I felt that I needed to connect with that because for us, we just documented it, soft copy. But imagine I want to ask something like, how do I do something? And then I ask AI like we ask Alexa. And he just tells me something my father told me. My dad is 86. At least, if God gives him life, many more years, he won't be here with us. But like he said, when we live here, we forget everything. So please cherish every member of your family who is still here with you and create out time to talk about your family legends, your stories, and document it. Even if you have not gotten the AI one, at least have a soft copy of it. And of course, we need to also, promote literacy and creative expressions where we're able to, like everybody remember that Tales by Moonlight. But these days, what do we have on air? Wahala, 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 right? So we need to, I'm giving that back to you, please. Can you give us more African content? And like he rightly said, I live with this before I move on to the next panelist. Ayo did share something very fundamental. How can parents who need parenting parent their children? I think this is that place where we say deep. You know how we say on social media when somebody drops something? That is really deep. But I want to encourage every parent here. Even in parenting your children effectively is in you admitting the gaps that you have. The areas in your life where you need parenting. And don't just be like the father who would beat the child for coming last. And then one day they were clearing daddy's cupboard and they saw that daddy has been coming. Do you understand? So you have to be sufficiently vulnerable with them. When they ask you questions you don't know the answer, Tell them you don't know the answer, but I will go and research. Don't just answer anything, because at the end, all of us are a work in progress, but we have to show leadership and also submit. And like Ayo said, one place you can learn to be a parent is by enrolling in the Family Systems Engineering Certification course, because there you would get to understand why you are the way you are, and then with the tools and methodologies in the approach, you can also reparent yourself so that you can be a more effective parent to your children. Clap for me for that. Okay, so round two. Gbenga, I'm starting with you. And we want to talk about communal responsibility and our well-being. And this is one aspect that I love a lot because it's the motto of the Institute, and that is Ubuntu. As Africans, we are known for the Ubuntu philosophy, where we believe in interconnectedness. And as such, we value community, we value communal responsibility and shared compassion. This was one way our ancestors fostered strong family and community bonds and well-being. So my question to you is, what strategies can be deployed to educate and share our unique ethnic rituals and traditions in a culturally sensitive and respectful manner, avoiding cultural appropriation and misrepresentation in a multicultural workforce?
Wow.
So is that one? There are layers, Abi.
As doctorate level question. Um, so, I mean, thanks again, Praise, for bringing me. I have a unique attraction to this community. I don't do anything around family life coaching or counseling, but you occupy a sensitive place in the site, and I think everyone deserves a round of applause. Yeah, please go ahead, clap for yourselves. This my cry to this community remains the same. It remains the same. People you see as patients and clients and family members, they are to me employees, right? The problems you are not fixing in homes, they bring it to my workplaces. Um, what you see as some, oh, sorry, let me flip the coin. What I see as, and these days when I counsel around, permit me to use some HR terms, PIP, performance improvement programs and things like that, where people are just, I see people whom I hired 6 months ago. I went all the way to hire the person because I know he or she can perform, and comes to my organization, and in 3 months' time, that person is yelling and crying and shouting on people. When I see emotional outburst at work, I was telling one of my friends, during the short break, what I see sometimes, or what I'm looking for is he or she married? Are there issues at home? And more often than not, that's the issue. But you see, corporate Nigeria, and to an extent, the workplace globally, we find it difficult to deal with such issues. In the last 5-7 years, that has been a growth of what we will call employee support systems. And there's been growth on mental wellness issues. Again, I've been telling everyone that cares to listen. We have overemphasized that issue so much that people that are actually okay are saying they are not okay. Because we have reprogrammed, they've heard it too many times. For God's sake, when did some of us pick the word imposter syndrome? In fact, if you check, you started thinking you have imposter syndrome because you heard you have imposter syndrome. For the life of me, you may not have it. What's my point? Issues of wellness, performance, culture, diversity of, in fact, it's a requirement today in the workplace that you can work and survive in a very diverse work environment. It's a requirement, and we track such things. I'm glad to announce to us, for instance, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, now referred to as NGX, now tracks and reports percentage of women on the boards of listed companies, just to further really encourage people who are encouraging the issue of gender balance and all of that in the workplace. But from a recent research that we've been doing in Nigeria, these are the 4 elements that make up for culture. And it will help some of us here. One is ethnicity. It's big for us in Nigeria. You can't talk about diversity or culture in the workplace and not look at the element of ethnicity. 2, the biggest, is religion. It's big, it's unspoken, and in some places it's very loud. I see you as a Muslim, as a tribalist, or a Christian. In fact, our religions tell us to project it almost to the disregard of the other person's religion and all of that. I personally think is wrong. Number 3 is age. That's a third sensitive element of culture, what makes for culture, or some will call diversity in the workplace. The fourth one though, is the biggest to track, and that is your worldview, how open-minded you are. Because you see, you can be born in Castina, grew up in Ajegunle, and you can be in New York tomorrow and you are fine. And it can be the reverse. Because what we have right now in corporate Nigeria is a situation where you can be part of a 5-man team, and your leader is 5 hours behind you or 6 hours in front of you. I'll tell us a simple story just to really expand our thoughts. I don't have the right answer, but I'll just expand our thoughts. I had a story of someone who left Nigeria, jackpot, and went to work somewhere else. 1 year afterwards, a former colleague came on to work with him as well. They left the office, were going down a street, and a lady walked up to both of them and was coming at the guy who just came back, who just came to that country. And the guy, how can you, and I mean, professional alert, as it were, let me say it as it is, was coming at this guy that who just came. And the guy was going to start saying stuff that he shouldn't have said. It was the other colleague who quickly seized the occasion and took over and just told the young lady, oh, thanks a lot, but it's one of those days we're actually very tired. If we take you on now, we'll actually just waste your time. But this is my card. Can I have yours? We'll meet some other time. And walked away and told the guy, uncle, prostitution is legal in this country. I was expecting that reaction. Prostitution is legal in this country. If you had taken that conversation further, you have been the one that is wrong. And I went there intentionally, just to test how sensitive some of us are and to issues like that. And more people are working in teams where Steve is Eve and Eve is Steve. And we are struggling with it. Some of us are working in environments where it's first names. But you see, I grew up with a dad who, they're not born me well, and things like that. And our kids are going to schools where, and by the way, they're having friends who have now jackpot, who are still talking regularly and are exposed to these cultures and these nuances. And so there's a lot going on in the minds of the average employee around the subject of diversity and all of that. The biggest, like I say, is that quotient of openness of mind and what's your worldview? How un-Nigerian are you with your thoughts? Even when you're in Nigeria and you grew up in Gbenga, and you are now in a meeting on body lawn, are you going to look at all of them as thieves and people who don't deserve to be in the country and things like that? Those are the issues that we are seeing, and I'm asking practitioners here. Yes, individuals will come to you for counseling, but can we begin to enter corporate Nigeria and talk about sexual orientation? No, corporate Nigeria will not come to you. Excuse me, we will not come to you. We need you to come to us. We need you to change your messaging. We need you to, if there's any employee support, anyone that is doing anything on retainer here for organizations, if you check, they are mostly tilted towards the mental side of things. But that guy has sexual issues, not mental issues. You are not going to be able to treat that person. And you are perhaps not bringing someone else that is a sex therapist to help that person. Those are the gaps that I am seeing. And please, I'm repeating it. We are your customers. Walk up to HR issues, HR people, walk up to bank MDs, entrepreneurs that are dealing with these issues on a daily basis Today, when issues of sexual harassment is brought to my attention, I don't fly to begin to give the person a query or some memo or whatever it is. I'm wondering what's going on in this guy's house. How come he's harassing a young? Because you hear some cases, and you either think this person is lunatic or there's a deeper issue here. Because he's probably a 55-year-old trying to harass a 21-year-old. That should be his or her daughter. Those are the issues. Like I said, I don't have the answers. The workplace is increasingly diverse in culture. It will not stop. And we are seeing a wave come around soon. I'm sorry for taking my time. I'm seeing a wave coming around. We've had a wave of people going to London, Canada, US, and Australia. There's a second wave of us now even traveling within the African continent. Africa, for me, has always been a country, not a continent. And I'll explain. Look at the value of the stock exchanges all over Africa. Put it all together, it's less than the value of Apple as a country, as a company. So we are in true value a country, not a continent. The Africa Free Trade Zone is taking its roots. We now have 6, 7 countries that their central banks have been linked together. So you have more people going to Angola, going to Kenya, going to Uganda to work. So even within the African continent, as we begin to mix our cultures, how ready are we to accept, respect, and still walk across those boundaries without raising the red flags? That's my plea to this community.
Knowing that the family is the production center of the society, who agrees with me that as a country, we are overdue for a Ministry of Family Affairs? If you agree. Right? Because one of the things that can help this is to champion policies that would help to bridge this gap and create this interconnection. You know, for example, we're seeing registrars, especially in Lagos State, now mandating that people want to get married will take a more structured premarital counseling, which curriculum we had a hand in developing. So imagine if there is a policy that organizations are mandated to have a family life unit. Like you said, I know that it is integrated within mental health, but you will agree with me that if someone is having, or maybe you have experienced such, someone is having a fundamental family issue, with the assisted program that provides mental health, it doesn't address the issues. No, it doesn't. So that means that we need to expand it to include family life. But one thing I'm taking away from you, which I think my colleagues are also taking away, is that in taking the employee assisted family programs, we need to craft our messaging in a way that the workforce understands it, right? So that we can help them to bridge the gap. When you were talking about, yeah.
Quick data in corporate Nigeria, and I'm really sorry about this, but these are very sensitive issues. Quick data. There is a lie out there that every highly successful executive in the business world is without a functional family. It's a lie, but it's out there and it's very strong. That's your fault. Ouch, I'm sorry. It's your fault. In fact, to young women that are copying to, I have spoken to a young female professional before who says, I am not aspiring to be a very highly placed female executive. I asked her why. She said, all the ones I've seen don't have homes. Why are you not coaching that woman that is highly placed? If she doesn't come to you for any sort of coaching or counseling, you don't see that person as a client. And they will not come to you because they don't see you. You are not projecting, you are not sending any message to them because you see them as highly successful and they are okay. But I am telling you that there are problems and there are gaps there.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think we have a program for C-suite executives who are single and want to marry right. So we're already bringing out programs that addresses these people in corporate world, and I think more of it will come out. Okay, so quickly, my time is up, but I need to take this question. Please give me, we'll take it fast, Ayo. So you have 2 minutes. All right. And this is talking about integrating the rite of passage rituals. You know, Africa, we are rich with a lot of rite of passage rituals. But then as urbanization, modernization is coming, it's like we're dropping it. I did share, having your dad cook one full chicken for you when you see your first menses as an introduction to puberty. I didn't do it for my first daughter. I didn't do it for my second. By the third, I remember that they did this for me. So I did it for my third daughter, and it was like we had a conversation around, so what is this and all of that. So we have such rites of passages that we are, that are dying away. So in Africa, we have one kind of ceremony or the other to mark different life transitions. So what practical steps can we take to tap into the richness of this culture practically in today's world, where we're able to raise young people who are confident and integrated? And I'm asking this question particularly with regards to young boys, because that is another dimension that will take us a whole day to look at, where the young boy is socialized to have this macho personality, and because of the tilt towards feminism and girl child education, it's more like you see many programs that are tailored to the girl, and it's like we're leaving the boy child behind. So particularly for them, how can we engage this rites of passage rituals to instill confidence and sense of identity in our young boys?
I think the number one problem is that we are even segregating gender as parents. That's the number one problem. Segregating gender as parents, that's the number one problem. First of all, raise them as children. When you get into an organization, even if you are going to be the MD, you first of all go and do training. Do you do gender balance? First of all, raise them as children. My kids, I have 4 girls and 1 boy. All of my girls are mentally independent. I have a problem getting them to ask for help. By that I mean, you need help. Ask for help. Hey, Daddy, let me figure it out first. First of all, raise them as children. And I keep telling my children something. In your future, there is a problem pending. Most people your age will not have the mental capacity they need to occupy certain roles. I'm preparing you for that role. So that whether academically, psychologically, socially, you are mentally ahead of the pack. How many of us here, I know biochemists, studied biochemistry, they are radio presenters. Veterinary medicine, they are radio presenter. I know someone who did what Madam did. They are bank tellers. I don't know if there is agriculture in petroleum. But, okay. So, I think that's the number one problem, madam. Raise children. Full stop. I am looking for, please help me, whether in the Bible, in the Quran or Bible, where it says, raise a boy child and raise a girl child. Raise children. Let them be conscious of who they are, 1, 2. Their responsibility to humanity. Once you start them out like that, they will find the rest. Train up your child in the way the child should go. Don't train them the way you want them to go.
Right. Thank you. And I think we will be drawing our curtain on this panel session. But the summary of everything we've said here is that we need to reclaim our culture. We need to go back to rediscovering, revitalizing, and celebrating our culture everywhere that we find ourselves. And you see, even when people japa, there is this thing to want to identify, and people, downplay their culture. Wherever we find ourselves, let's be proud, like PF, to go in there and say, I come from the people who made the first street lights, and everybody is looking at you. That's how you can command attention. That is how you can even get people interested to hear what you want to say. And I think one way we can practice everything that everyone has shared here is to build systems. Go back to your homes, create an intentional education system for your family. Everything you've learned today, how do I make it a lifestyle in my family? Is by having an intentional curriculum. And I want to tell you that all of those things that were shared is possible. And I use this story to wrap up. Over the years, my husband and I have always said, oh, we need to bring back meal time. Because, and he said something about it. But we tried. We will eat together today, we will not eat together, and it didn't work. But COVID was a blessing because COVID kept all of us at home and we started to eat together because you were not going anywhere. And so we realized that at that time we would gist, we would talk, and now we sustain Sundays. So we eat Sunday lunch together. And I can tell you, just that small shift of an additional family system of just eating our normal food. But then it's helping us to talk, it's helping us to connect. So please, let's not just clap. Go home and ask yourself, of all the things that I've heard today, where is that gap in my family? And how can I bridge the gap? And I want to tell you, every effort you make is counting. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you to Gbenga, and thank you, Ayo. It was great having you here.
Dear brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters of Africa, as we stand here today, a generation is rising that's in danger of forgetting the power and resilience of our ancestors. We can't blame them, for it is our responsibility to remind them of the giants who came before us. We must tell them the stories of Chief Obafemi Awolowo, who fought for free education and social welfare, of Kwame Nkrumah, who led Ghana to independence and showed us what it means to be proud and free, of Margaret Epo, who paved the way for women's rights and political participation, of King Jaja of Opobo, who resisted colonial rule and fought for our freedom. We must remind them of Queen Idia, a symbol of maternal wisdom and power, of Dr. Nelson Mandela, who fought against apartheid and racism, and showed us the true meaning of forgiveness and reconciliation, of Thomas Sankara and Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who fought for our dignity and self-determination. We must tell them of the Great Wall of Benin, which was greater than the Great Wall of China, of how the Benin Kingdom had street lights before New York and London, of how Amadioha and Shogo produced fire before the world thought about electricity. Let us dive deep into our history and legends at the African Family Life Delegate Conference 2025 as we reclaim our heritage and strengths and build intergenerational resilience. Let's remind our children and grandchildren of the power of ancestors and the greatness that lies within. May 2025 is the day we take back our story, our history, and our legacy. Join us. Let's rise again as a powerful and resilient African family we once were. Welcome to the African Family Life Delegate Conference 2025, reclaiming our heritage and strength, African history and legends for building intergenerational resilience.